What's going on, horror fans? Welcome back to my channel, and let me start by asking you all a question. What is the most important part of a horror movie? Is it the story? Is it the main characters? Is it a creepy setting? Those are all good, acceptable answers, but in my mind, a horror movie lives and dies by its villain. And we can all agree that a truly great villain can transcend a mediocre story or bad acting and still craft a terrifying tale that leaves us fans feeling satisfied. But I gotta ask you, who are the best of the best? Who stands atop the mountain of the greatest of all time? Well, I set out to answer that very question today, so join me as I rank the top 15 horror villains of all time. At number 15 on my list, we have Leatherface. Now, this guy is big, mean, and fiercely loyal to his family. This gruesome and intimidating tank of a man likes to wear a skin mask of his victims, which is usually enough to freeze unsuspecting teens right in their tracks. And that is not exactly promising given this guy's weapon of choice. But this horror icon first appeared on screen way back in 1974 in a movie that was so incredibly scary. We have now seen 8 additional sequels, with one as recent as 2022. And you can't deny that with staying power like that, Leatherface, whichever iteration you choose, is a force to be feared, both in Texas and at the box office. And I'm quite certain that we will see more of this gigantic, chainsaw-wielding maniac in the very near future. Next up at number 14, we have John Kramer, also known as Jigsaw. And Jigsaw is an evil mastermind who ended up trying to kill himself and survived and sort of became enamored with the will of the human body. And he has a penchant for setting up super elaborate and horrifying traps for his victims, people that he deems ungrateful for the life that they have. And he actually feels righteous that it's his job to test the will of these people that he seems unworthy. He sees himself as like a savior. He feels like he's rescuing these people. And he even stated that he's never murdered anyone in his entire life. The decisions were completely up to them. And in spite of your stance on that and whether you believe that he's a hypocrite or not, there's no denying that his victims meet horrendous fates if and when they do fail John's tests. The last words that anyone wants to hear in this universe is game over. At number 13, we have the Creeper. Every 23 years, for 23 days, it gets to eat. Jonathan Brake's transcendent performance as the aptly named Creeper is the stuff of nightmares. A creature that can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse, only hunger. And once it gets a scent that it likes, it's all over, man. And we've seen him shot, we've seen him stabbed and run over and dismembered, and while you may slow him down, he will never stop. He has extraordinary regenerative capabilities. He can fly, he has super strength, super agility. I mean, have you seen him with those little ninja dart thingies that he has? Absolutely crazy. But that sort of determination for a meal is certainly understandable if you've ever found yourself in the food service industry for any length of time. But this goes beyond wanting 50 boneless wings and a Diet Coke. He wants your tongue. He wants your eyes. He wants your life. At number 12, we have the shark from Jaws. Now, this is a true force of nature. Bruce lives rent-free in most people's heads, literally right before they take that first step into the ocean. This gigantic fish is not a friend, but he does think of you as food. And that's what makes him so scary, is the fact that for most of the movie, we don't see him. Because of a malfunctioning shark, we understand the story. We know that they wanted to show him more, and they couldn't. But it actually works to the beauty of this movie that you don't see Bruce the shark. And when he does make his entrance, you as the audience are truly shook. You see those black eyes. You see those razor-sharp teeth, and that's enough to send a chill down the spine of any horror-hardened badass. And the fact that these guys actually exist and a run-in with a great white is plausible. That just adds to the terror that you could be next. Number 11 on my list is Chucky. And you guys all know the story. After serial killer Charles Lee Ray is gunned down in a toy store, the voodoo-loving slasher transfers his soul into a good guy doll. And the rest, as they say, is history. We've got 8 movies, we got 3 TV seasons, and counting, and you really just can't keep a good guy down. Seriously. Nothing they do can stop Chucky. Anytime they put him down, he seemingly transferred his soul into another body. But in spite of his puny stature, this guy packs one hell of a punch, and he never has a lack of options for offing his victims. He is easily one of the most creative killers we have on our list, and he always finds a way to turn our stomachs while hitting us with some amazing dark humor or a classic one-liner. Brad Dourif is amazing in this role. He should be given all the credit for the legacy. His vocal work in this series is masterful. Just cracking the top 10 is Pennywise. Pennywise is a cosmic, shape-shifting monster who's most commonly seen as a dancing clown. And I have to question, the fear of clowns is so relatable and common. It is surprising he's had so much success leading kids to their doom. If you're going to hang around in a sewer, it's the late 80s, try to be a Ninja Turtle or something. You might get a little bit more success. But that does show Pennywise's true powers. He knows what scares you. And most people are afraid of clowns, and he has the ability to come off harmless until it's time to strike. Now, he is extremely durable, and he's commonly found in areas where you would never want to be. An old abandoned house, a water drainage pipe, you name it, and if somebody's afraid of it, Pennywise will use it to exploit your fear and eventually take you down. Really, his only weakness, and the reason he's not higher on the list, is the lack of fear. If you are a brave soul to take him down and you don't fear him, you can actually take his power away. Number 9 is Candyman. Now we have our first semi-sympathetic character on the list. Candyman was a slave who was murdered in a truly barbaric and painful way. They spread honey all over his body and let bees sting him to death. And this was, just a result of an interracial affair, but back when that was extremely frowned upon, and as a result a mob comes together and kills this man, and he returns as an urban legend of sorts, appearing to anyone who says his name 5 times while looking in a mirror. And horror is not a genre typically associated with subtext, but this masterfully crafted 90s movie is drenched in it. You can't talk about this movie without talking about class and race, as they play an integral part in the overarching story. But it really is Tony Todd as the titular villain that brings everything together. He's scary, and yet he's alluring as he attempts you to be his victim. And for some reason, I kind of want to say yes. Number 8 is the Entity from It Follows. Now, this is the second shapeshifter on my list, and it comes from the 2014 smash hit It Follows. The entity is transferred via sexual activity, and once you've been targeted, there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that you can do to stop the entity. It's slow, but it's steady in its pursuit, and aside from passing the target to someone else, that's really your only option. And it takes the form of a person that you may know, someone you may not know. And the worst thing is that the only person that can see it coming is the person targeted, so you can't get any warning from anybody who may be trying to help you out. And as far as we know, there is no way to defeat this thing. And that, paired with the tension of not knowing if that weird stranger walking towards you is coming to kill you, might be enough to push the strongest of us completely over the edge. Number 7 is Death. Now we move on from a shape-shifting being to one that you never actually see, but the fact that it's invisible does not lessen the impact on the horror series' final destination. This version of Death is an invisible and unstoppable force, and it's one that we must all face one day, so there's a sad reality there that, there is no escaping death. But what makes this version of Death so scary is that it does not like it when you change its plan, and the punishment, I use that word purposely, punishment for cheating Death is to fall victim to a horrendous freak accident, each one more violent than the last, as Death desperately tries to close the loop. Nobody will ever be passing peacefully on this guy's watch, that's for sure. And I know each of us gets on a plane or passes a log truck and we're thinking, is it my time? Number 6 is Ghostface. And the scariest thing about Ghostface is that he or she could be anybody. And given the track record, it's likely that somebody that you are very, very close to. And that alone is terrifying. But you pair that with the ghostly knife-wielding figure and an encyclopedia-like knowledge of the horror genre, and you've got one of the all-time goats. Now, for Ghostface, unlike some of the previous villains, it is always personal. Each film in the series provides us with a new group of baddies who don the iconic mask, each with their own motive. He may not be the most creative killer on the list, largely using a hunting knife to do his dirty work, but Ghostface can be just as brutal as anyone else when properly motivated. Just ask poor Randy. I'm still not over that. Number 5 is Jason Voorhees. Now, this iconic hockey fan did not even appear in the first entry of his own franchise, but that has not stopped the big guy from amassing a kill count in the triple digits across 12 movies of varying quality and execution. There is one thing that's consistent in all of them aside from a detour to space and a short trip on a boat, is that Jason will be showing up at Camp Crystal Lake to murder any helpless, horny teens who dare show their faces. Now, he is known primarily for his mask and trusty machete, but Jason often ditches this iconic weapon in lieu of more barbaric and creative ways to dispatch his victims. Most notably, slamming campers against a tree when they're trapped in a sleeping bag, as well as defacing a lady with some liquid nitrogen. Good stuff. Now, if only we could get a 13th movie. Number 4 is The Thing. Now, our last shape-shifting entity on this list is certainly not the least. The Thing from another world is a master of hide and seek, and it uses its shape-shifting ability to try to remain largely undetected as it assimilates every living being around in hopes of ultimately spreading across the world. Its greatest strengths, aside from the ability to open its chest up and bite off arms, is mistrust and paranoia. There's just a sense of dread and uneasiness whenever you know that the Thing could potentially be around. And by the end of the experience, our two heroes are so exhausted from the ordeal that they seem ready to accept their fate, whatever it may be, rather than continue the fight. And with limited ways of telling the Thing apart from real human or beast, it's only a matter of time before it gets what it wants. Either it wins or it goes to sleep. Kind of reminds me of my 7-year-old. Number 3 is the Xenomorph. Now, a single Xenomorph was enough to kill the entirety of the Nostromo crew except for the badass Ripley, who only survived thanks to some quick thinking and the pressures of deep space. These fierce, fast, and deadly creatures are said to be the perfect killing machine, with an inner jaw that springs out to attack, they have razor teeth and claws, and it's all attached to a sleek yet gigantic frame. Now, that would be enough, but what sucks is when you are lucky enough to wound one of these creatures, they excrete acid blood capable of damaging not only you, I mean, they've killed people with it, but also, I mean, likely you're going to encounter this beast in space. It could destroy the very ship that you're on, and you know, the only saving grace aside from the 2 AVP movies is that we've never seen the Xenomorph make it to Earth. So stay out of space, you should be good to go. Yeah, good, because I needed that. Number 2 is Michael Myers. Now, for me, this is the face of pure evil. I mean, an otherwise normal boy snaps and kills his sister at just the age of 6. I don't want to know why. That's what makes it so scary is Michael shows no signs of remorse, of humanity. And that's, so we knew him as the shape in the very first Halloween movie. He wasn't even a man. He was just a ghostly shape. And in spite of his seemingly superhuman strength and durability, Michael is just a man, and that's scary in of itself. This isn't some alien monster coming to get you. This is a man, a sick individual who shows no real rhyme or reason as to why he does the things that he does, except for, depending on which timeline you're following, trying to kill every member of his family, as well as anyone who would attempt to get in his way or stop him. I mean, he kills kids, he kills dogs, So, I mean, he's the worst. He's absolutely the worst. And Michael doesn't typically get too creative with his kills. Instead, he relies on brute force and his trusty kitchen knife, paired with his 100 out of 100 stealth abilities to finish his victims. And with a body count in the triple digits that span 13 movies and counting, this iconic baddie is the mark for which all slashers are striving for. And topping off our list at the number 1 spot is Freddy Krueger. Now, there's just something inherently scary about a killer who can get you while you're sleeping. I mean, you can run, you can hide, but eventually we all have to sleep. And once you're in his world, you can imagine how much of a chance you stand against a man who is literally the god of the nightmare world. Nothing is off limits for Freddy, and he's found new and memorable ways to kill the children of Elm Street each and every time he graces our screen. Robert Englund's work as the child-killing burn victim is absolutely legendary. He makes us laugh as he commits horrors that would otherwise turn our stomachs. And much like Pennywise, Freddy knows exactly what scares you, and he feeds off that fear for his power. But unlike Pennywise, the lack of fear doesn't kill him. It just takes his power away, and all he has to do is find a vessel, like he did with Jason, to get the fear back, and then he can get his power back, and he can come out swinging. And it's also, he's remarkably durable even outside of the dream world. They always seem to pull him out of the dream world, and he's still a force. I mean, he goes toe to toe with Jason, but when he's at full power, there's absolutely nothing you can do to stop him. It's his world. It's his nightmare. We're just living in it. And it's funny because if you look at Freddy, he really shouldn't work as well as he does. He's got the silly fedora. He's got an ugly, nasty-looking sweater and the glove with finger knives. But that's the true strength of the premise and Mr. Englund's performance, that he is a true horror icon. One that is unquestionably on the Mount Rushmore of horror villains, and in my mind, the best of the best. So that's my list, y'all, and I know it's not the right list. It's just my opinion. It's just my list. I mean, there's probably people I left off this list that you absolutely love. Comment down below. Let me know your top 5, your top 10, your top 3, whatever you want to comment. Comment video ideas. Comment anything. I want to engage. I'm trying to build a community of like-minded people who love horror and love talking about horror. So please like the video if you like the video. If you're new here, think about subscribing. It just takes a minute, and it really helps the channel grow and meet new people. So I really consider this an absolute pleasure to be able to do this for you all, and I can't believe that people actually care. So it's an honor. I love you all so much. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe. Be good people, be good to each other, and I'll catch you next time.